Rugrats. Now, isn't that a theme you haven't heard in a long time? Do people actually still know the Rugrats? The show aired on Nickelodeon with a runtime from 1991 to 2004, and this whole phase of digging up the past for nostalgic modernism certainly isn't something that's going away anytime soon. But while this show is very much cemented as a TV program, Rugrats did in fact also have its own successful franchise of full theatrical movies, released in 1998, 2000, and 2003. And these weren't too unsuccessful. Together, they mustered over $300 million worldwide. And now, 2 decades later, there are motions being made for a 4th installment to be coming in. It's not a reboot, it's apparently a whole step forwards. Now, I'm not actually the perfect demographic for Rugrats. When I was born, the series was already 5 years old, and by the time the final film came out, I was 7. So I'm very much a late bloomer to Rugrats, kinda like the second generation kid. Didn't see the 90s classics other than reruns, but was right up there for the movie CGI front, though the CGI was a bit more primitive to the stuff we now know. My memory of these films are kinda hazy. The first one especially I must not have seen all that much, as I remembered no specific details, but could recognize somewhere deeply in my memory. The other two I could remember beat for beat sound-wise somehow, but not so much the story details themselves. But regardless, we're gonna tackle all 3 of these movies simultaneously to analyze its specifics and see how they can hint further to this upcoming 4th film as we pick out more confirmed details about it. Let's pull back to our nursery and kindergarten years and discuss how the Rugrats movie is coming back. So the Rugrats Movie 4. The concept of the idea has been on the minds of Nickelodeon for a while now, as its original scheduled release date was set to be November of this year. However, clearly more time was needed to finalize the process in some way. After all, there's quite a legacy to hold up. With the first 2 films establishing entirely new characters for the world of Rugrats in the form of Dill Pickle from the first film, as well as Chucky's new mum and sister, Kira and Kiki. Both of these films work in tandem with the TV program as a kind of spin-off stepping stone to curve the series in a new direction, whilst putting in all sorts of fan service to provide a full-length theatrical experience with some surprisingly real, deep-feeling emotions and character developments. And then there's the 3rd film, where I wouldn't exactly say it was bad or anything. I mean, I quite enjoyed it a bit as a kid, but it doesn't really have that established heart, and rather was all fan service in creating a long crossover episode with the Wild Thornberrys. It was nice, but was understandably the least well received of the bunch. So how does the story work with these first 3 films? Well, the meat of the story for the first film, comfortably titled The Rugrats Movie, is all about the birth of Dill and the other babies coming to terms with the reality of having a new character to bounce off of. Clearly, being a newborn, he has a lot of flaws and conflicts with the rest of the cast, and things only go more chaotic when an incident lets them loose down the street in a reptile head vehicle that ends with them crashing down into a labyrinth of a forest, with only each other as company. A real horror story for any parents. The sequel plot, aptly named Rugrats in Paris, is all about the entire extended bunch getting a vacation opportunity in Paris as Father Stu gets to work on some engineering work. Rather than the plot being the action of isolation and babysitting, this time the story is much more emotion-centric, with Chucky feeling lost and different without the inclusion of his mother in his life like all of his friends have. And the plot highlights this further as his dad is looking for a relationship and is going through the motions with a clearly antagonistic woman that the gang must try to overcome for Chucky to get the perfect mum instead. It's a bit more hard-hitting than the previous film, but clearly a good choice since this one garnered far better reviews across the board. And as for the threequel, Rugrats Go Wild is all about the gang shipwrecking on an abandoned island only to be integrated with the Thornberrys family. Antics ensue among the jungle and characters bounce off of each other in great duo moments. Once again, it becomes a parent nightmare of losing your kids, as well as trying not to die of starvation this time on a deserted island. Now, looking through the 3 of these just through their plot gimmicks, there certainly looks to be some variety in the adventure types to be explored with these babies, whilst the foundation also seems awfully simple and easy to expand upon further, Obviously, the whole formula of Rugrats has always been about a young child's imagination of how the world works, and this is clear throughout all of these movies. From misinterpreting something from the adult world to just going off in their own imaginative worlds, there's clearly a lot of room for a future film to explore further, as up to this point we've only really explored being lost physically, causing havoc in an amusement park, and exploring the emotional depth of some of these characters. While some have clearly done better and are probably the better choice to continue forth within a new project, it's hard to deny that there's plenty of opportunity for the Rugrats world to expand from these three simple titles. But yes, logically speaking, I would imagine this fourth film isn't being created solely out of a passion for a program from the 90s. No, much rather like everything else, this is just business being business, and clearly Rugrats has worked before, and we are stuck in a stage of nostalgia, so it all lines up really. Still, with money being a priority, one would imagine something more akin to Rugrats in Paris would be likely to make a reappearance. And with that being much more character-based with a background of fun antics, let's look deeper into the actual character progressions of each film to see how they could be reflected in a fourth installment. Assuming that's where this film will be going. Also, can I just say, when I was rewatching these films for like the first time in 20 years, it was really mind-boggling to see just how good these films were. Like, seeing all of the extra material that previously went over my head was so interesting to see, and just looking at how the Rugrats formula plays around with its concept was really cool. And I can't understate how impressed I was of the voice acting for all these characters. It's something I never really acknowledged as a kid, but man, these characters sound perfectly babyish for being in their 40s and beyond. Still, yes, the Rugrats movie focuses all in on Tommy in particular, with it being a transitional stage for him. While it begins with him blindly looking for his little sister at the baby shower, once Dill makes an appearance, it's clear what kind of strain Dill is going to produce, as not only does he scream all the time and take away the parents' attention, but even as Tommy decides to have some sponsitivity over Dill, he then has to juggle looking after his own friends at the same time during their time of need. Being pulled in all sorts of directions obviously drives the conflict, and surprisingly, most of the plot as well. It's pretty strongly all character driven. Like, Dill's desire to play with the reptile toy is what leads them into the forest, but once there, as antics happen around them, it's everybody's reactions that push and split the group around. Moments like Tommy choosing to save Dill over Chucky when he falls into the river is something that causes a rift in the group later on that splits Tommy and Dill away to sleep in a cold cave alone without everybody else, and the continued rift of Dill's selfishness only pushes Tommy further and further. All the while everyone else is following their own arcs to find the babies in their in-character ways, before everything comes to a built-up collective. Still, seeing how character-focused this film was in driving the film was something I really wasn't expecting upon this rewatch. Anyway, Rugrats in Paris has the character focus going deeper and deeper, and I mean, even as a 4-year-old, I could just feel the rejection in that one scene of Chucky not getting to dance with his mum. I mean, ugh, my heart, my poor 4-year-old heart. And man, this film doesn't pull any punches. Just as you get those heartwarming scenes with the dad or just the kids messing around on the plane, it's not long again before you're hit with another bout of depressing reality and a sad song playing in the background. And throughout this film, they do a great job of using this basis to propel the characters into all sorts of situations and moments to bounce off of other characters like the clearly evil Coco with Angelica's sassiness, as well as seeing how it pushes Chucky to the moment of saying his first verbal word to the parents. It truly wraps everything Rugrats together in a wonderful adventure with a real strong theme and character direction to progress forwards with. It's just spectacular. The third film kinda has some character-focused stuff, but it's much more just for show or formula. Like, Angelica is basically a baby Debbie Thornberry, so those two have some great fun angsty scenes together. It was the first time I was exposed to that 180s song. Whilst Chucky and Donnie are complete opposites, which the film plays around with for laughs, as well as to develop a bit more of Chucky's confidence a tad down the line. There's somewhat of an attempt of a mini-arc between the twins too, with Lil wanting to be a vegetarian after seeing the cruel nature of the jungle, but it's not all that strong as a plot and more of a minor conflict. And even Tommy has a moment of self-doubt against his driven personality trait, which the film tries to overcome with a scene of everyone comforting him, which is like nice in a vacuum, but it just doesn't quite have the build-up one would expect compared to the prior two films and their structuring. It's a fun watch for kids like me who did enjoy it when I wasn't smelling the scratch and sniff cards of stinky tuna, but as an actual product, I can understand the lackluster responses. I loved the fan service of hearing Spike actually speak, because obviously Eliza can speak to animals, but it was voiced by Bruce Willis, and a lot of people were angry by that. He spoke a lot, but I didn't recognize him as a kid, so yeah, I don't care. Overall, it's kind of hard to see where character development could come into this fourth installment, since it's clear that each type of baby character does have their own formulaic plot to follow, while sometimes there could be a deeper understanding of these characters if there is potentially a new element being introduced. In the end, it comes down to what kind of direction they want to curve the series, as well as to create that emotional depth, or just keep us with the same thing as always. But there is something that is an undeniable upgrade across all three films compared to Rugrats' TV roots, and that is the animation quality. Obviously, with a much bigger budget and timescale to produce these stories, the animation team were able to really flex their muscles, and it shows. I remember always being super excited for these TV movies just to see how much of a visual upgrade they could seem, from the massive scale of the cinema screens to the additional lighting plastered in. And since we're coming to the 2000s now, CGI is getting pushed in wherever it can. Vans, machines, boats, anything that can be perceived in 3D is. And though it's a tad jarring looking at it nowadays, I would still argue that it wasn't placed in all too badly. It's different, but it somewhat works for the design of the films, and has certainly been done worse in other places. But speaking of 3D CGI, suddenly the fourth installment becomes a whole lot more topical, as this new edition is in fact going to be making yet another tropey jump of the times, as yes, the characters in this new fourth film are gonna be 3D CGI animated characters. 2D animation is a thing of the past, unfortunately, and it's three-dimensional or no-dimensional these days. I mean, look around, everyone else is doing it too. But on top of that, though we don't yet have any direct visuals of this fourth Rugrats film, we have got it confirmed that it's going to be a live-action CG hybrid. And that's a little horrifying. Obviously, it's been done plenty of times before, but for Rugrats, I personally am struggling to see how it comes to fruition. I mean, when it was first a thing, this was done with 2D animation, and that worked great. And as we hit the modern era, we slowly started to master 3D animation with it too, and that's great. But look at all of these previous attempts. What do you notice about all of these 3D CGI characters? Here's the answer. They're all furry characters, and I mean that literally, they all have fur, because that somehow is what works better in 3D live-action animation. Anthropomorphism is just so in right now, and you know what I associate with Rugrats in 3D? These things, ugh! Can you imagine these things somehow being integrated with reality? Like, I'm seriously struggling to logically piece it all together, even with the advances of modern tech in my mind. And what kind of story can accommodate the meshing of the cartoony world of the Rugrats and reality? Unless it's the Gumball effect of just boring the realistic backgrounds. Or it's like real-life babies going into their imagination of the cartoony world? Or vice versa? But you know what, maybe I'm overthinking it. While there is a lot of depth to Rugrats sometimes, the real meat of the animation is the moments. And the first three films showcase all sorts of scenarios for the babies to play around with. With the first one showing us hiding under tables, turning a baby ward into a musical theatre, imagining the world as an Indiana Jones adventure, riding around in a reptile head or a back of a lorry, fighting off monkeys, flowing down rivers, gripping onto a sprinting Spike, and being cornered atop a wooden bridge. The third film actually copies a lot of these gimmicks, like the reappearance of a predator and other foresty jungle things with maybe more of a tribal theme, but then Paris gives us more room with running off of an amusement ride, hiding beneath the office desk of the evil lady, and fighting against Reptile's rival in a gigantic reptile mech, which on its own is just pretty damn cool. And actually, while I'm sure there's plenty of room for other kooky avenues to be explored in different scenarios, there was a strange trait that linked all of the antics together across these films, and that was musical numbers. I guess it was just a popular trope of the time, but every single one of these films have musical numbers scattered across them for a more investing moment for the kids, I guess. Firstly, about the general existence of newborn babies, with a lot of penis jokes in it. Then in Paris, we have a literal musical scene for Reptile's story, and in the third, Angelica goes off on her own singing ramble, which makes me think, first, what's the purpose of them all, and second, how would the fourth film bring it back, or is that a trope that's dead now? One funnily explores the mechanics of the Rugrats world with talking babies, one is integrated with the story, and the third one's just kind of forced in. I wonder which option this new one will take, assuming it will keep this feature at all after all these years. Well, actually, there is just a little bit more context I can provide about this fourth movie that could potentially fill some gaps, and make some more ones, really. So, we've heard that it's a CG live-action hybrid and was originally set for November 2020, but as of now has been pushed back beyond January of 2021. So clearly, there's at least a little motivation to make this project actually good. Not being rushed by any means. But another small detail we know about the film is who's making it. Turns out this film is being done partially by the same studio who did Dora the Explorer and the Lost City of Gold. Yeah, remember that movie? Well, that one too is a live-action hybrid with CGI in one particular case, which is the best notion we've got for the CGI quality claim. Interestingly enough, that film also had a musical number, song and dance at the end, but that was very playing up the trait of every episode of Dora the Explorer ever, so it makes a lot more sense in that context. Writing-wise, this film was very self-aware and tongue-in-cheek, and though there's all sorts of other context to keep in mind about how this film will turn out, seeing this one as a reference only really continues to confuse me further. But based off of the three prior films, there is a substantial foundation for this movie to bounce off of. Whilst re-watching these films, I was starkly surprised and impressed with the heart and depth that could be found in these films, and I thoroughly enjoyed looking at them through a more critical eye. But beyond that though, we have very little to go on to predict the nature of this new film. There certainly seems to be some bumps in the road if the schedule's been on pause for now, but with its $300 million backing and its strange direction choices to keep it topical with the modern times, we can certainly say that at least with a little more time and thinking, in some form or another, the Rugrats movie is coming back. For now, my name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. Man, I enjoyed these Rugrat films way more than I expected to. Those first two were especially good and heartfelt. I never watched the original 90s series, but maybe I will after this. Also, I was ill this entire video, I don't know if you could tell. I was glugging milkshakes on every break, so my apologies for that.